Once upon a time. No, I think someone's already done that. It was a dark and stormy night. Oh, no, I think someone's done that too. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far. Oh, no, 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 no. If this has happened to you, you're not alone. Every writer has trouble starting a story. But don't worry, I've got some tips and tricks to help you start some amazing stories. Stick around and find out how. Welcome to Word Wizards, a series where you'll discover the magic of writing. I'm Marty Chan, a kids author, storyteller, and word wizard. I'm going to show you how the right combination of words can take something like this blank piece of paper and transform it into your story. You might have a fairy tale fantasy or an adventure story where an explorer is looking for treasure, or a science fiction saga set in outer space. Anything is possible. All you need is a little bit of imagination, the courage to try something different, and practice. Lots and lots of practice. Then you'll be able to transport your readers into your amazing stories. All right, word wizards, I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks on how you can become better writers. But before I do that, let me share with you a little scenario. Let me describe a situation that some of you might recognize. You're sitting in the classroom, daydreaming. Maybe you're thinking about what you're going to do at lunchtime. Or you're remembering that awesome video game you played on the weekend. Or you're daydreaming about going to Disneyland on vacation with your family. Then your teacher wakes you out of your daydream and says, "All right, everyone, start working on your stories." You panic as you realize you had been paying attention in class and you have no idea what you're supposed to write or even how to write that story. So you drag your feet to the back of the classroom where you grab a sheet of paper from the paper bin. You make your way back to the desk and you stare at that blank piece of paper, trying to figure out how you're going to write the story. Then you come up with this great idea. You raise your hand and you ask your teacher if you can go to the bathroom. Your teacher sighs and says no, because 17 other students came up with the same idea to stall for time. Then you ask your teacher, "How long does my story have to be?" And she tells you at least 2 pages. You drag your feet to the back of the classroom where the paper bin is, and you grab a second sheet of paper and make your way back to your desk. Now you're sitting at your desk staring at 2 blank sheets of paper, wondering how on earth you're going to fill them with a story you don't even know how to write. Then a brilliant idea comes to your mind. You're going to write really big words so you don't need as much to fill those 2 pages. If you recognize that situation, then you have been procrastinating. You've been stalling for time. And trust me, I have been where you've been. When I was a student, I had the eternal breaking pencil. The one that no matter how often I tried to sharpen it, it would mysteriously break. Now, as a professional writer, I find different ways to procrastinate. I might go on YouTube to do research. Sometimes I'll go to my iPad and start playing some video games. And my favorite way to procrastinate is going for a walk. You see, I live in Edmonton, Alberta, which is known for its beautiful river valley. And it just so happens my house is very close to the river valley. So I can go for a walk amongst nature in the beautiful scenic river valley of Edmonton. I enjoy the sights, the sounds, the smells, and that walk fills me with all sorts of ideas to stall for more time. Now, I'm creative, but I procrastinate. If you're looking for ways to stall for time, guess what? You're also creative. In fact, I bet you if your teacher asked you to write a story about a kid who was coming up with different ways to get out of working in class, you'd probably come up with enough ideas to fill an entire book or maybe even a trilogy. So why do creative people procrastinate? Well, the answer is simple. We're afraid of failing. Because when you're writing a creative story, you're doing something that no one else has done before, including yourself. You're trying to create something out of nothing. And you don't know if what you're going to create is going to be right or wrong, or if people are going to look at it and say, ooh, what's that all about? It's kind of like, let's say you're on the basketball court trying to show off your skills, right? You're dribbling, trying to get around the defenders, trying to slam dunk, but you can't get past those defenders and you decide, oh, you know what? I'm going to try to score a three-pointer, right? And you rock back just like the NBA players do, and you launch the ball up high in the air. The defenders look up, their mouths drop open as they watch the ball arc through the air and completely miss the hoop. No one wants to be that person, and that's why writers procrastinate. But here's the thing about writing. No one ever needs to see you miss. When I work on my first draft of a story, I will rewrite my opening sentence 20 times. So I miss 20 times, but everyone thinks I always score because I only show them the opening sentence that I actually like. Now, it does mean it'll take you a little more time, a lot more effort, and you might have to do some revision. No, don't go away, don't go away. I know revision repels people like that, but revision is very much part of a writer's job. In fact, I will revise my manuscript at least 6 times before I start to show it to anybody. But for me, revision is really fun because of the way I think about it. I think of revision in the same way I think about my favorite video games. I used to play adventure quest games like Mega Man and my favorite, Super Mario. And whenever I finished the game, I would go back and explore the worlds, seeing if I could find stuff that wasn't there the first time around. And I love the characters, so it was always fun to play. In the same way, if you write a story that you love, you should always have a good time going back to revisit your characters and try to discover new things in your story. That's how revision can be fun. I'm pretty sure I haven't convinced everyone that revision can be fun. So let's roll up our sleeves, word wizards, and figure out a practical way to make revision easier. I know that sometimes you think writing is grabbing a piece of paper, holding a pencil in your hand, one that doesn't break all the time, and start writing. Well, no. Actually, the writing happens in your brain. So let's take the paper and the pencil out of the equation. Instead of writing with paper and pencil, write with your brain and your mouth. I want you to think through your story, the beginning, the middle, the end, the characters. And if something doesn't work in your mind, just change the thought. Once you're comfortable with the story in your brain, then start telling the story to yourself. You can change things up, right? Because it's easy to change what you say and what you think. And when you're comfortable with the story that you're telling to yourself, then find somebody to tell the story to. I often come up with my stories and then I will go and pitch them to my wife and get her feedback. So my advice is get married, ask your partner for feedback. No, that'll take too long. Find a family member, a guardian, a parent, a sibling, a friend at school. Tell them the story and ask for their feedback, and you can make changes because it's a lot easier to change the thoughts in your mind and the words coming out of your mouth than the words written on a page. The way I like to think about it is something cool happens. You go to school on Monday and you tell one of your friends this awesome thing that happened. They might ask some questions to get clarification, so you answer them. Then when you tell a second friend, you fill in those details you missed the first time around. And you might notice that the second friend gets really excited about a certain part of your story, so the third time you tell the story, you beef up that exciting part. And by the end of the day, you have such an amazing story, everyone's gathered around you listening to your every single word. That's what you're trying to do when you're writing in your brain. And at a certain point, you'll be so familiar with the story, when it comes time to pick up your pencil and that piece of paper, you're no longer writing, you're just recording the story that's already in your brain. And it makes writing so much easier to do. Now, the next thing I know you're going to ask me is, hey, Marty, yeah, I've got that great story idea in my brain. I'm looking at that piece of paper and I still can't get started. That blank piece of paper almost looks like a gigantic wall in an obstacle course that you have to scale, and you have no idea how to tackle it. You're not alone. Every writer faces that blank page with the same fear and the same dread. That first sentence is tough to tackle. So your teachers offer a solution, right? Start with a line of dialogue, start with a sound, start with an action, describe a character, describe the setting, and pretty soon you're like, just tell me the one way that's gonna work for my story. And your teacher says any of those ways will work. And they're kind of right, but let me get more specific. You see, every different kind of story, every genre will have a different way in. If you're writing a comedy, you might want to start off with a situation that makes the reader laugh. If you're writing about a creepy haunted hotel, you might start off by describing the setting and create a creepy, suspenseful mood to pull us in. If you're writing an action-adventure story, start with your hero eating pancakes. No, don't start anything with pancakes. Well, unless you're writing a murder mystery and the pancakes are poison, then you can start with pancakes. Let me put it in terms that you might understand. I'm going to use a little prop right over here, a Rubik's Cube. You know, a Rubik's Cube, you have to solve by figuring out different algorithms, different combinations of moves in order to solve the cube. Now, it's not one algorithm that solves everything. You have to figure out which algorithm to use based on the pattern that you see of the cube. Same thing with starting stories and genres. If you're trying to figure out the right opening sentence, you've got to do some research and learn about how different writers start their stories in different genres. So do yourself a favor, go and grab like 5 to 7 books in the genre you're writing and take a look at their opening sentences and look for a pattern of how they start their stories. Now, I'm not asking you to plagiarize. Don't copy an opening sentence from another author, but look for a pattern. Go, hey, wait a minute. Every time I read an action adventure, it starts with some kind of cool action or situation where the character's in danger. Or if I'm reading about creepy stories, they usually start by setting the mood with a description of a setting. All right, so what you want to keep in mind is that when you're working on your genres, your stories, look for that algorithm or that pattern so that you can figure out the right way to start your story. Once you know that algorithm, you can apply it to any genre story that you're working on, and the next thing you know, your opening sentences come together just like this cube. Now I'm going to give you a Kickstarter. I'm going to give you an algorithm that you can apply to your starting story. It doesn't matter how you start it with sound, dialogue, characters. Always remember one thing. Your opening sentence has to make us want to read the next sentence. You've got to make us curious about what's going on in the story. For example, when I wrote my novel, The Mystery of the Frozen Brains, I started with the line, I hated secrets. And everybody started saying, hey, wait a minute, I love secrets. What's so bad about this secret that somebody hates it? And they wanted to find out what that secret was. Now we're going to put all of that into action now. I'm going to give you a writing prompt, a story starter to kickstart your imagination. And this story prompt is actually inspired by the very first prompt that I remember doing when I was starting out. I remember I was in high school in grade 11, and my language arts teacher, Mr. Nigro, gave our class a homework assignment. He said, I want you to all imagine you've won the lottery. You have $1 million and you can spend that money on anything you want. I just want you to describe how you'd use that money to redecorate your bedroom. Now, I was a lazy teenager, so my idea of a dream bedroom was to have a bed I never had to get out of to do all the things I wanted to do. So I decided to use my lottery winnings to change my bedroom and put it on an elevator. Top level is where I slept. There was a skylight overhead so I could sleep under the stars. Beside the bed on the nightstand was the elevator button. I pushed it, and the entire bed would lower to a library with all the books I wanted to read. The next level had a big screen TV and all the movies I ever wanted to watch. Beneath that, there was a kitchen and a bathroom, but the kitchen had an automatic fast food system. So if I wanted a hamburger, fried chicken, or pizza, I pushed 3 buttons and all of those things would show up at the same time. Underneath the kitchen was a video game arcade with every game system and every game that I ever wanted to play. Underneath the arcade was my favorite level of all. It had an indoor swimming pool. The foot of my bed was the top of a water slide. If I wanted to go for a swim, I just jumped onto the water slide and I zipped all the way down into my own private swimming pool. I handed in that assignment and Mr. Nigro, my teacher, gave it back to me and he said, Marty, you've got a great imagination. Have you thought about becoming a writer? Well, that moment inspired me to become the writer I am today. Unfortunately, Mr. Nigro is no longer with us. He passed away many years ago. But I thought in honor of the memory of my favorite language arts teacher, I'm going to give you that very same story starter. I want you to write a story about a kid who wins the lottery. They could have $1 million, they could have $10 million, they could have $100 million. You choose the amount they've won. But I want you to write a story about this kid and all the things they do or buy with their lottery winnings and all the trouble they get into when they start spending them. And I'm going to throw one more bonus challenge at you, and that is something from my own personal philosophy about word wizardry. Write about the things around you. So I want you to try to work in something from your hometown, your home city, into the story. For example, if I wrote about the lottery story, I'd probably feature this fountain at the Alberta Legislature building because I love the idea of fountains, but instead of it dispensing water, I'd want it to dispense different flavors of pop. Root beer, Pepsi, 7-Up, Orange Crush. That would be my dream. So I want you to try to come up with a story, work in something from your hometown or home city, and try to come up with a really cool story. One last thing I want you to remember, the power of words can transform your ideas into the most amazing things. So when you look at a blank piece of paper, all you want to do is apply those words, your word wizardry, and transform that page into the amazing worlds that you're going to take your readers to. With that note, I hope you try everything I talked about, and I welcome you to keep watching and become your own word wizards.